Okay, there are only 4 girls in this lecture: Himab, Anika, Shaista, and Jasmine. Where is everyone else? Are you guys sleeping? Okay, Anila is also here, and Samreen and Uneza are also here. Sadia is also here. Minahil, Sara, Sidra. So I think that's all. I just wanted to see how many people are actually listening to the lecture. Talha is also here. Aisha, how are you, Aisha? Fine? That's good if you are fine. Tahir. Okay, ji, let's start our topic. We were discussing about thrombus. Um, I have discussed the pathophysiology of thrombus, which is a very important question for your exams and for your future medical practice also. So today I'm not going into the pathophysiology of thrombus again, because if you remember, it's very easy and simple. If you make a concept, you just need to understand that the pathophysiology of thrombus is all about that triangle which is called Virchow's triad, and it has 3 corners, all 3 representing one of the pathophysiological aspect of thrombus formation. Uh, and a thrombus will be formed if any one of those 3 basic um, scenarios are disturbed. Okay, so we will today continue with the morphology of thrombus. How a thrombus look like macroscopically and also microscopically. So one thing that you must remember forever is a thrombus is always focally attached to the underlying vascular surface. Now, what kind of vascular surfaces can form a thrombus? Any kind of blood vessel, which can be a vein or an artery, can form a thrombus, and even heart surface can also form a thrombus. Cardiac chambers can have thrombi in them, which are known as mural thrombi. Okay, first and the most important thing is that a thrombus is focally attached to the underlying vessel wall. Focally attached is the key word over here. Okay. From here, arterial thrombi tend to grow retrograde, while venous thrombi extend in the direction of blood flow, thus both propagate towards the heart. The propagating portion of a thrombus is often poorly attached and therefore prone to fragmentation and embolization. ठीक है. अब arterial और venous thrombi जो हैं, there are certain differentiating features in these two. ओके, अब ये वाला जो स्लाइड है, ये आप लोग प्लीज इसको क्लिप कर लें, स्क्रीनशॉट, प्रिंट स्क्रीन, जो भी ऑप्शन है आपके लैपटॉप्स पे और मोबाइल्स पे, क्योंकि ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये बुक में नहीं दिया हुआ, ये मैंने दूसरी बुक में से लिया है. ठीक है. So what are the different distinguishing features of arterial and venous thrombi? अब आप लोगों ने ये बात हमेशा याद रखनी है कि arterial thrombi are also known as white thrombi, क्योंकि एग्जाम में white thrombus और red thrombus में डिफरेंस आ जाता होता है. तो ये नहीं करना कि रेड थ्रोम्बस इज आर्टीरियल. जो arterial thrombus है that is white as compared to the venous thrombus. Why? Because blood flow in the arteries is rapidly flowing and the blood flow in the venous system is slow moving blood. जब वो slow moving होता है it has more trapped and enmeshed red blood cells in this thrombus which is formed in the venous system. What are the common sites of arterial thrombi? Arterial thrombi are common in aorta, coronary, cerebral, iliac, femoral, renal, and mesenteric arteries. Venous thrombi are more common in superficial varicose veins, deep leg veins, popliteal veins, femoral and iliac veins. Lower limbs की side पे venous thrombi are more common. How this thrombus forms in the arteries? In arteries, thrombi are formed following endothelial cell injury, for example in atherosclerosis. And in venous system, it is formed following venous stasis, for example in abdominal operations and childbirth. इन दोनों चीज़ों के बाद क्या होता है? Bed rest होता है, जिसकी वजह से there is venous stasis in the lower limbs. ठीक है, अब देख लें आप इन दोनों के थ्रोम्बोजेनेसिस के अंदर देयर इज अ ह्यूज डिफरेंस. Arterial thrombi are not commonly formed as a result of stasis or bed rest. Bed rest के बाद जो thrombi बनेंगे they will be mostly venous thrombi. And how are they developed? The arterial ones are usually developed, they are usually mural, not occluding the lumen completely, may propagate. And venous thrombi are usually occlusive, take the cast of the vessel in which formed, may propagate in both directions. Venous thrombi क्योंकि वो slow moving blood होता है veins में, तो वो पूरी की पूरी vein को occlude कर लेता है mostly. लेकिन arterial thrombi क्योंकि fast moving blood होता है arteries में, तो क्या करता है, जो thrombus बनता है later on उसकी canalization हो जाती है दरमियान में. तो इसलिए ये जो mural word है इसका यही मतलब है कि forms a canal within the thrombus. तो दरमियान में से ये empty होता है, so it does not occlude the lumen completely and it can also propagate. Macroscopically, arterial thrombi have gray-white friable appearance with lines of Zan on surface. And what about venous thrombi? They are red-blue with fibrin strands and lines of Zan. Lines of Zan is a feature of both kind of macroscopic distinct lines of Zan composed of platelets, fibrin with entangled red and white blood cells are present in the arterial thrombi. And venous thrombi have more abundant red cells. That is why they are also known as red thrombi. Arterial thrombi can lead to ischemia and infarcts, for example, in the heart and brain. And venous thrombi can result in thromboembolism, edema, skin ulcers, poor wound healing, etc. तो हार्ट अटैक जो होता है that is a result of arterial thrombus. Stroke जो होता है या cerebrovascular accident that is a result of arterial thrombus. And on the other hand, DVT, deep venous thrombosis, superficial veins, varicose veins, edema, and skin ulcers, they are all the result of venous thrombi. Okay, so this was about the differences between red and white thrombi or venous and arterial thrombi, which was the second most important question of this topic. First important one is pathophysiology of thrombosis. Second important is the difference between venous thrombi. The third important is about microscopic picture of a thrombus, in which you have to mention these lines of Zan. Lines of Zan क्या हैं? These are pale platelet and fibrin deposits alternating with darker red cell rich layers. Okay जी. अब ये पिक्चर भी आपकी बुक के अंदर नहीं दी हुई, इसकी भी आप स्क्रीनशॉट ले लें काइंडली. are fibrin threads along the platelets, and they have red blood cells lying around. Microscopically, they form alternating lines, and microscopically also they are forming alternating lines of fibrin and platelets with red blood cells. Okay. So this is the second most important question. What is the significance of these lines of Zan? इसका आंसर है कि such laminations signify that a thrombus has formed in flowing blood. Their presence can therefore distinguish antemortem clots from the bland, non-laminated clots that occur post-mortem. Post-mortem आप लोगों को पता है डेथ के बाद पूरी बॉडी के अंदर जितना भी ब्लड होता है वो क्लॉट बन जाता है उसका. So that clot has to be differentiated from the antemortem clot, और उसकी सबसे बड़ा differentiating point ये है कि antemortem clots have lines of Zan within them, but the postmortem clots they are bland in their appearance. पूरे का पूरा एक yellow color का fat बन जाती है, ये jelly like बन जाता है postmortem clot. This is a picture of mural thrombus, a thrombus that is formed in the cardiac chamber. This I have already discussed with you, arterial thrombi versus venous thrombi. ये है antemortem thrombi versus postmortem clots. So what is the difference in their gross appearances? Antemortem thrombi are dry, granular, firm, and friable as compared to the postmortem clots, which are gelatinous, soft, and rubbery. Antemortem clots are adherent to the blood vessel wall, and the post-mortem clots are only weakly attached to the vessel wall. Antemortem thrombi may or may not fit their vascular contours. क्यों? ऐसा क्यों है? Because antemortem thrombi जो हैं, they are again of two types, arterial and venous. Arterial thrombi do not fit their vascular contours, but venous thrombi do fit their vascular contours. But post-mortem clot, in any case, they do not, they always take the shape of the vessel or its bifurcation. जहाँ पर भी होगा पूरे का पूरा वहीं पे ही solidify हो जाए. Microscopically, the surface contains apparent lines of Zan in antemortem thrombi, and in postmortem clots, the surface is chicken fat, yellow, covering the underlying red currant jelly. बिल्कुल jelly की तरह का होगा और chicken fat इसको कहते हैं. So this was about antemortem and postmortem clot. This is also often asked in the exam. So अभी तक जो मैंने आपको thrombosis का topic करवा रही हूँ उसमें से मैंने आपको 4 questions करवाए हुए हैं university questions. First one was the pathophysiology of thrombosis. Second was the difference between arterial and venous thrombosis. Third is difference between antemortem and postmortem thrombi. Fourth question is the microscopic picture of a thrombus. Next one is fate of the thrombus. Fate you can guess by yourselves also. It is a very easy and understandable topic. If a patient survives the thrombosis in the ensuing days to weeks, undergo following 4 events. First one is propagation. Maybe the thrombi accumulate additional platelets and fibrin and keeps on growing. Second one is embolization, that it can dislodge and travel to other sites in the vasculature. Third, it can be that it may dissolute as a result of fibrinolysis, which can lead to the rapid shrinkage and total disappearance of the recent thrombi. These 3 are the most important one. Then a thrombus can organize itself and recanalization of the thrombus can take place. Older thrombi become organized by the ingrowth of endothelial cells, smooth muscle cells, and fibroblasts. Capillary channels eventually form that re-establish the continuity of the original lumen and by to be able to make a thrombus into a smaller mass connective tissue that becomes incorporated in the vessel wall, eventually with remodeling and contraction of the mesenchymal elements. Only a fibrous clump may remain to mark the original thrombus. The vessel will become thinner, वो हो जाएगा और थोड़ी hard. Occasionally, what happens, the centers of thrombi undergo enzymatic digestion, presumably as a result of the release of lysosomal enzymes from trapped leukocytes and platelets. In the setting of bacteremia, such thrombi may become infected, producing an inflammatory mass that erodes and weakens the vessel wall. Okay, this was all about the morphology of thrombus. Our next topic is clinical features of thrombosis. Okay, arterial thrombus, as we have discussed, will result in mostly heart attack or CVA and such kind of phenomena. Venous thrombosis is of two types. Venous thrombosis किन जगहों पर होता है ज़्यादातर? Mostly in the legs and lower limbs. ठीक है? So venous thrombosis is again of two types clinically, superficial and deep. क्योंकि legs की जो venous system है ये सारा है ही इस तरह का कि superficial veins भी हैं और deep veins भी हैं. So if the venous thrombosis affects the superficial veins of leg, for example saphenous veins, तो वहाँ पे क्या बनता है superficial venous thrombosis और इसको हम varicose veins भी कहते हैं. They are visible from the surface of the legs. They result in local congestion, swelling, pain and tenderness, but rarely embolize. होता क्या है कि जो superficial veins के अंदर valves लगे हुए होते हैं, they are the valves become abnormal in there, या फिर उनके ऊपर thrombosis हो जाता है तो valves they do not let blood flow through them. तो क्या होगा कि blood will start to pool in the veins of the legs, or they will take the shape of the varicose veins. There will be local congestion, swelling, pain and tenderness, but rarely they embolize. What about deep venous thrombosis? उसके अंदर कोई localized varicose veins या फिर swelling नजर नहीं आती, overall पूरी leg जो है वो swell हो जाती है. It can happen above or below knee. It is more dangerous than superficial venous thrombosis because deep venous thrombosis can embolize and it can be silent clinically. Maybe maybe initially the patient only experiences pain in the legs, but later on that pain becomes severe, and it can also happen that the intensity of pain does not increase and the thrombus silently embolize to maybe brain or heart or anywhere or lungs even or in the mesentery and lead to sudden death of the patient. Common predisposing factors include bed rest and immobilization because they reduce the milking action of the leg muscles, resulting in stasis, and congestive heart failure, also a cause of impaired venous return. Trauma, surgery, and burns not only immobilize a person but are also associated with vascular insults, procoagulant release from injured tissues, increased hepatic synthesis of coagulation factors, and decreased tissue plasminogen activator production. इन सब चीज़ों की वजह से ultimately there will be thrombosis in the deep veins of the legs. Many elements contribute to the thrombotic diathesis of pregnancy, including decreased venous return from leg veins and systemic hypercoagulability associated with the hormonal changes of late pregnancy and the postpartum period. Now, this information is very, very important because specifically in pregnancy, they can ask you about the tendency of thrombosis in pregnancy. तो अगर आप लोगों को ये स्पेसिफिक इन्फॉर्मेशन पता होगी तो ये आप लोगों के मार्क्स पूरे आएंगे. अदरवाइज अगर आप लोग जनरल इन्फॉर्मेशन देंगे तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली यू विल नॉट स्कोर इनफ. tumor-associated inflammation and coagulation factors, tissue factor, factor 8, as well as procoagulants, for example, mucin released from tumor cells, all contribute to the increased risk of thromboembolism in disseminated cancers. This is also called migratory thrombophlebitis or Trousseau syndrome. Okay. अब आप लोगों को प्रेगनेंसी में भी पता चल गई है उसकी पैथोफिजियोलॉजी ऑफ थ्रोम्बोसिस एंड इन ट्यूमर्स. This is how superficial or varicose veins look like. ये आप लोग देखेंगे. Okay, this is the normal vein having a valve and normal blood flow. But in case of varicose veins, what happens? There is a deformation in the valve, or there can be a formation of a thrombus over here. So क्या होगा? Blood has started to pool in these veins, and they can be seen from the surface of the skin also. इस तरह से. So they can be easily treated. This condition is not fatal और इसका ट्रीटमेंट बहुत ही आसान है. As compared to the deep venous thrombosis, deep venous thrombosis में क्या होता है कि overall leg ही swell कर जाती है और उसके अंदर पेन होती है. But sometimes there can be no symptom at all. सिर्फ mild सी एक पेन फील हो पेशेंट को और कुछ भी ना हो. That is why it's very important कि जो bedridden patients हैं या जिनके अंदर जो the patients who are more prone to form deep venous thrombosis, उनको exercise कराई जाए legs की और उनको उनके ऊपर एक check रखा जाए ताकि अगर silently भी develop होता है तो हमारे पास हमारा index of suspicion जो है that should be high for that category of patient. Next condition is disseminated intravascular coagulation. हम पढ़े हैं clinical scenarios related to thrombosis. जो पहला हमने clinical scenario पढ़ा है that was about the venous thrombosis. उसमें से deep venous thrombosis है और superficial venous thrombosis है. And then certain conditions which are more related to the phenomena of venous thrombosis, which are pregnancy and tumors and bedridden patients. और उन तीनों में हमने अलग से उसकी pathogenesis भी discuss की है. Now next clinical condition associated with thrombosis is disseminated intravascular coagulation. It is not a specific disease, but rather a complication of a large number of conditions associated with systemic activation of thrombin. Disorders ranging from obstetric complications to advanced malignancy can be complicated by disseminated intravascular coagulation, which leads to widespread formation of thrombi in the microcirculation. These microvascular thrombi can cause diffuse circulatory insufficiency and organ dysfunction, particularly of the brain, lungs, heart, and kidneys. DIC uses platelets and coagulation factors, therefore it is also known as consumptive coagulopathy and often activates fibrinolytic mechanisms. The symptoms initially related to thrombosis can evolve into a bleeding catastrophe such as hemorrhagic stroke or hypovolemic shock. Okay? Now scenario क्या होगा? In easy words, I will explain this to you. Start कहाँ से होता है? A patient who is sick, he may be having sepsis due to any gram-negative organism, or maybe he is an obstetric patient, or a trauma patient, burn patient, such kinds of patients who are there in the hospital, or patients who have undergone any kind of surgery, especially orthopedic surgeries. What happens in those patients? After any triggering event, most of the phenomena of thrombosis starts in those patients. Consumptive coagulopathy starts in those patients. And what happens in consumptive coagulopathy? All the coagulation factors and platelets are used up in forming blood clots at many sites in the body. After all these platelets and coagulation factors are used up. Now the body is deficient in these coagulation factors and platelets. That deficient system will now is now more prone to bleeding. Obviously सारे के सारे coagulation factors अगर use up हो गए हैं तो अब उस body के अंदर जिसके अंदर वो जो toxic substance है या जो भी inciting agent है that is still present in the body, वो जब vessels को damage करेगा तो there will be no platelets or coagulation factors to heal or repair that damage. तो उस damage में से सारी bleeding start हो जाएगी. तो start कैसे हुआ ये? Start हुआ with the thrombosis and later on the patient is going to bleed. और next क्या होता है उसकी bleeding की वजह से he can go into hemorrhagic stroke. If that bleeding is in the brain, then it will be a hemorrhagic stroke. Or otherwise, if the bleeding is in the extravascular spaces, then what happens? The patient will go into hypovolemic shock क्योंकि उसकी blood जो vessels के अंदर से सारा volume है जो liquid है blood है वो सारा का सारा उसमें से lose हो रहा है तो फिर the patient is going to go into hypovolemic shock as a result. Yes, DIC अभी explain हो रहा है. DIC खुद से कोई disease नहीं है but it is a complication of many diseases. Okay. What are the different causes of DIC or disseminated intravascular coagulation? Gram-negative endotoxemia. Gram-negative organisms तो आप लोगों को याद होंगे सारे bacteria. Any patient who is severely sick with gram-negative organisms and the gram-negative endotoxins have gotten into the blood of the patient, then it can lead to the tissue factor release. ठीक है. Next trauma. Trauma की वजह से भी DIC जो है वो हो सकता है start. Then cancer cells. Cancer cells, for example, mostly जो acute promyelocytic leukemia है, APL जिसको कहते हैं ये, and number 2 adenocarcinomas. These two are more notorious in causing DIC. ठीक है. And then obstetric complications. For example, abruptio placentae, जिसमें प्लेसेंटा जो है वो यूट्रस से सेपरेट हो जाता है. पूरा नहीं होता, उसका कुछ पार्ट सेपरेट होना शुरू हो जाता है. बट इन एक्सट्रीम कंडीशंस पूरा प्लेसेंटा भी सेपरेट हो सकता है फ्रॉम द यूट्राइन वॉल. इसमें भी DIC होने के चांसेस है. देन रिटेन्ड फीटस, कि फीटस जो है वो उसकी डेथ हो गई है लेकिन वो एक्सपेल नहीं हो रहा, अंदर ही है. दैट कैन ऑल्सो ट्रिगर DIC. Then preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is a condition where blood pressure of the patient is very high. उसमें नाइट्रोजन और ये वाली सारी चीज़ें जो हैं ये ज़्यादा हो जाती हैं जिसकी वजह से preeclampsia हो सकता है. That is also a risk factor for causing DIC. Then septic abortion. An abortion which is a result of a bacterial infection or sepsis. Septic abortion can also be a triggering factor to release tissue factor. Tissue factor आप लोगों को पता है ना, tissue factor along with the factor 7 can initiate the whole coagulation cascade. और जब वो coagulation cascade start होता है और वो इतना ज़्यादा massively start होता है कि वो फिर stop नहीं होता. ठीक है. So these were all the stimuli that we were talking about. Next होता क्या है? There is elaboration and release of tissue factor. टिश्यू फैक्टर क्या करेगा? वो पूरा कोएगुलेशन कैस्केड में से गुजर के देयर इज जनरेशन ऑफ थ्रोम्बिन. थ्रोम्बिन जब एक दफ़ा बन जाता है तो वो क्या करता है? इट एक्टिवेट्स प्लेटलेट्स एंड ऑल्सो इंट्रावैस्कुलर फाइब्रिन. इन दोनों चीज़ों की वजह से देयर इज थ्रोम्बोसिस एंड विच कैन लीड टू. थ्रोम्बोसिस ने क्या करना है? ब्लड वेसल को ब्लॉक कर देना है. जब ब्लड सप्लाई एक ऑर्गन को नहीं जाएगी या एक टिश्यू को या किसी भी चीज को जहाँ वो सप्लाई कर रहा था. दिस हैपेंस इन कैपिलरीज फर्स्ट एट फर्स्ट. ठीक है. कैपिलरीज जो हैं वो आप लोगों को पता है वो टिश्यूज के अंदर से ही गुजर रही होती है मोस्टली. तो दैट इज व्हाई हाउ इट लीड्स टू टिश्यू नेक्रोसिस. ठीक है. ऑन द अदर हैंड प्लेटलेट एक्टिवेशन जो है इट कंटिन्यूज इन ए पॉजिटिव फीडबैक साइकिल. फर्स्ट the platelets which are activated they will start to release those platelet granules which will activate more platelets, and then those platelets will activate more platelets. In that way, almost all of the platelets will become activated and they will be used up in forming small thrombi all over the body in all the capillaries. Okay? So that will result in thrombocytopenia, and you know that thrombocytopenia will eventually lead to bleeding. On the other hand, when intravascular fibrin is also activated as a result of generation of thrombin, this will lead to depletion of coagulation factors, and again this will lead to bleeding. Intravascular fibrin जो है, this will lead to secondary fibrinolysis. जब intravascular fibrin activate होती है तो टिश्यू प्लाज्मिनोजेन एक्टिवेटर भी एक्टिवेट हो जाता है, और फाइब्रिनोलाइसिस वाला सिस्टम जो है प्लाज्मिनोजेन जो है दैट विल get activated and get converted into plasmin. तो प्लाज्मिन जो है उसके डिफरेंट फॉर्म्स हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल टिश्यू प्लाज्मिनोजेन एक्टिवेटर. तो इसकी वजह से यानी कि सेकेंडरी फाइब्रिनोलाइसिस भी स्टार्ट हो गया है. जब ये स्टार्ट होगा तो देयर विल बी फॉर्मेशन ऑफ सेकेंडरी फाइब्रिनोलाइसिस. क्या करेगा कि वो फाइब्रिन के जो जो जहाँ जहाँ पे भी क्लॉट्स बने हैं उनको डिग्रेड करना शुरू कर देगा, और बनेगा क्या, फाइब्रिन डिग्रेडेशन प्रोडक्ट, एफडीपीज. इनको हम डी डाइमर्स भी कहते हैं. तो फिर एंड रिजल्ट पूरे सिनेरियो का क्या बना, thrombocytopenia, tissue necrosis as a result of thrombosis, bleeding, FDPs, ठीक है जी, और डिप्लीशन ऑफ कोएगुलेशन फैक्टर्स. ये चार जो हैं इसके कंसिक्वेंसेस इस पूरी कैस्केड के. ओके, लेट्स डिस्कस सम ऑफ द कॉजेज. कॉजेज जो है मेनली ऑब्स्टेट्रिक कॉजेज जो हैं वो बहुत कॉमनली दे लीड टू द कॉम्प्लिकेशन ऑफ DIC. तो कौन कौन सी ऑब्स्टेट्रिक कॉजेज हैं, amniotic fluid embolism, ruptio placenta, placenta previa and accreta, postpartum bleeding, HELLP syndrome, preeclampsia or eclampsia, septic abortion, intrauterine infection, acute fatty liver of pregnancy. And then there are also non-obstetric complications or causes. For example, sepsis, trauma, organ damage, leukemia, vascular aneurysm, acute liver failure, toxic and immunological causes, narcotic drugs, ABO incompatibility, transplant rejection. These can all lead to, all these causes can provide us with the stimulus of DIC. Okay, this is how after thrombocytopenia hemorrhage can look like. This is a huge ecchymosis. This is known as an ecchymosis. Okay. Okay, any questions so far regarding DIC? हम लोगों ने causes पढ़े हैं इसके. सबसे पहले मैंने आपको बताया it is not a specific disease but it is a complication of many diseases. हम सब diseases के नाम हमने पढ़ लिए हैं, ठीक है. होता क्या है इसमें, DIC uses platelets and coagulation factors. Therefore, it is known as consumptive coagulopathy and often activates fibrinolytic mechanisms. ये दो बिल्कुल opposite चीजें हैं. जब platelets और coagulation factors activate होते हैं तो क्या होता है, formation of a thrombus. और जब fibrinolytic system activate होते हैं तो what happens, it break down thrombus. थ्रोम्बस का ब्रेक डाउन मैकेनिज्म जो है दैट इज नोन एज fibrinolytic mechanism. अच्छा जी, different causes, for example endotoxemia, trauma, cancer cells, obs-gynae complications, and they can also be categorized into obstetric and non-obstetric complication causes. Then this whole scenario, what happens after the stimulus, there is elaboration or release of tissue factor. Tissue factor activates all the coagulation cascade, which ultimately results in generation of thrombin. Thrombin activates platelets and it also activates intravascular fibrin. Both of these combine together to form thrombi in the microvasculature. which results in tissue necrosis. On the other hand, the platelet activation is a positive feedback type of cycle. One platelet activated activates many more platelets, and those platelets again activate many other platelets. That is how most of the platelets of the body get consumed up, and it leads to thrombocytopenia, and thrombocytopenia is directly a cause of bleeding. On the other hand, intravascular fibrin also gets depleted along with the depletion of other coagulation factors, and it will again contribute to the phenomena of bleeding. Intravascular fibrin that is formed will activate plasminogen to plasmin, which will lead to secondary fibrinolysis. Those small clots that were formed in the body, they will start to get lysed due to because of this fibrinolysis mechanism, and the end product will be called fibrin degradation product, FDP. This is how the patient सडनली एक ऑब्स्टेट्रिक पेशेंट है या फिर कोई कैंसर का पेशेंट है और ट्रॉमा का पेशेंट है, वो बिल्कुल सही हो रहा होता है आफ्टर 1 or 2 days, वो सडनली इस तरह के ब्रूजेस और एक्कीमोसिस उसकी बॉडी के ऊपर अपीयर होना शुरू हो जाते हैं और डॉक्टर्स को शुरू में समझ नहीं आता कि क्यों बन रहे हैं. ठीक है, इसके अलावा और सिम्टम्स क्या हो सकते हैं? देयर कैन बी ब्लीडिंग फ्रॉम द गम्स, क्योंकि जितने भी म्यूकोजल ब्लीडिंग होनी है बेसिकली थ्रोम्बोसाइटोपिनिया की वजह से, तो जितने भी म्यूकोजा है वहाँ से ब्लीडिंग हो सकती है. देयर कैन बी इंटेस्टाइनल ब्लीडिंग हो सकती है, स्किन के अंडरनीथ इस तरह से ब्लीडिंग हो सकती है, गम्स में से ब्लीडिंग हो सकती है, वेजाइनल ब्लीडिंग हो सकती है, देन इंट्राक्रेनियल ब्लीडिंग भी हो सकती है इवन इसमें. ओके, और एक और बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर इसका ये होता है कि जहाँ पे भी कैनुलास वगैरह लगे हुए होते हैं, इंजेक्शन साइट्स होती हैं, वहाँ पे भी ब्लीडिंग स्टार्ट हो जाती है. टेस्ट फॉरन इसके ऑर्डर जो करते हैं दे इंक्लूड प्लेटलेट काउंट, बिकॉज यू कैन नाउ कॉम्प्रिहेंड के प्लेटलेट काउंट जो है दैट विल बी डिक्रीज. देन पीटी प्रोथ्रोम्बिन टाइम दैट विल बी प्रोलॉन्ग्ड. पीटी क्यों प्रोलॉन्ग हो जाएगा? क्योंकि द फैक्टर्स आर डेफिशिएंट. ठीक है, एक्सट्रिंसिक पाथवे वाले जितने भी फैक्टर्स हैं दे आर नाउ गोइंग टू बी डेफिशिएंट. In initial stages only PT is prolonged, but later on after the disease progresses APTT भी prolong हो जाता है. ठीक है, सारे के सारे coagulation factors नहीं एंड में कंज्यूम आप हो जाने, और PT APTT both are going to be prolonged. Fibrinogen level, it is also it is reduced. फाइब्रिन सारी कंज्यूम हो गई है, जो ब्लड का सैंपल हम लेंगे देयर विल बी नो फाइब्रिनोजन इन दैट सैंपल और लेस फाइब्रिनोजन. ठीक है, सो दिस इज रिड्यूस्ड. फाइब्रिन रिलेटेड मार्कर्स ये वो हैं जो एफडीपीज हैं और डी डाइमर्स हैं. ये वर्ड्स आप लोगों ने भूलने नहीं है, क्योंकि आप लोगों ने जब फाइनल ईयर में जाना है मेडिसिन वालों ने आपसे पूछने हैं, दे विल एक्सपेक्ट कि आप लोगों को आते होंगे, इसलिए मैं इनके ऊपर इतना जोर दे रही हूँ. एज सच बुक के अंदर कहीं भी नहीं आपको ये पढ़ाए जाएंगे, बट दे एक्सपेक्ट कि आपको पता हो. ठीक है, एफडीपीज और डी डाइमर्स जो हैं ये क्या होगा इनको, ये दे विल बी इंक्रीज. अगर आप लोग इस स्लाइड का स्क्रीनशॉट ले लें तो बहुत अच्छा है, क्योंकि दिस इज वेरी इंफॉर्मेटिव. These are the 4 basic tests that have to be done on a patient of DIC, और या फिर जिस पे सस्पेक्ट कर रहे हैं DIC. ओके, उसके अगर पेरिफेरल ब्लड आप सैंपल दें और उसको माइक्रोस्कोपी में देखें तो देयर विल बी प्रेजेंस ऑफ दिस काइंड ऑफ शिस्टोसाइट्स. शिस्टोसाइट्स आर ब्रोकन रेड ब्लड सेल्स. ठीक है, so these are seen in abundance in a patient of DIC, शिस्टोसाइट्स. ओके, एनी क्वेश्चन सो फार? इसका मैं ट्रीटमेंट आप लोगों को बता दूं, इसके अंदर फ्रेश फ्रोजन प्लाज्मा देते हैं पेशेंट्स को. ठीक है, और बाकी वेट एंड वॉच एंटीबायोटिक जो कॉज रूट कॉज है डीआईसी का दैट हैज टू बी ट्रीटेड, और जो बाकी का सारा सिम्टोमेटिक ट्रीटमेंट होता है. लेकिन इसको चीज़ को क्लियर करने के लिए वी हैव टू गिव द पेशेंट फ्रेश प्लाज्मा जिसके अंदर सारे क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर्स होंगे. तो वो क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर्स की जो डेफिशिएंसी है पेशेंट के अंदर दैट विल बी ओवरकम. ओके, नाउ This is a summary of all the picture that we have discussed: coagulation cascade, fibrinolysis. ठीक है, एक साइड पे coagulation cascade है और दूसरी साइड पे fibrinolysis है, and all of these are working in a very delicate physiological balance. कहीं पे भी balance disrupt हुआ, either there will be bleeding or thrombosis. दोनों pictures हो सकते. Okay, any questions so far? Otherwise, I'm going to continue to the next topic. Okay, next, let's continue to the next disease, which is known as embolism. Embolism क्या है? उसी का ही एक extension है, thrombosis. A thrombus which is detached from its point of origin, which can freely circulate in the vasculature, which is known as embolus. An embolus is a detached intravascular solid, liquid, or gaseous mass that is carried by the blood from its point of origin to a distant site, where it often causes tissue dysfunction or infarction. So, the thing to consider is that an embolus can be solid, liquid, or even gaseous. Okay. Now let's see what are the different types of emboli. The first and the most broad category is thromboemboli. The thrombus में से detach होंगे, they are known as thromboemboli. Fat droplets can also embolize. Then nitrogen bubbles can also embolize. This is a form of gaseous embolism. Atherosclerotic debris or cholesterol emboli can also form. Then tumor fragments can also emboli. Bone marrow can also embolize. Foreign bodies can also make emboli in our circulatory system. Okay, this was the broader or general classification of embolism. इसको अगर आप लोग categorize कर लें तो this is a solid embolus, this is again a solid embolus, this is a solid embolus, solid, solid, solid. Okay. Nitrogen bubbles are gas emboli. System-wise embolism is again classified. This is another system of classification. For example, the embolism that takes place in the lungs is known as, or the respiratory system is known as pulmonary embolism. The emboli that occlude the pulmonary system originate from deep venous thrombosis, mostly leg DVTs. Most common form of thromboembolic disease, fragmented thrombi from DVTs, progressively larger veins, right side of heart, and then pulmonary arterial vasculature. This is the pathway that they take to reach the pulmonary vasculature. क्या होगा? From the deep veins of the legs, they reach progressively larger veins. Iliac veins होंगी, उसके बाद जो आप लोगों की inferior vena cava है वो होगी, and then they end up in the right side of the heart for a short period of time, and from the right side of the heart, इसमें से फिर ये निकल के पल्मनरी आर्टीरियल वास्कुलेचर में चली जाएगी और वहाँ पे जहाँ पे वो उसका साइज उतना होगा वहाँ पे वो जाके उसको ऑक्लूड कर देगी एंड इट कैन ऑक्लूड मेन pulmonary artery bifurcation and smaller branching arteries. Okay, this is a picture post-mortem appearance of an embolus which has lodged at a pulmonary artery branch point. Yeah, this is how it occludes the whole vascular system. Obviously, इसके बाद फौरन से ही वो पूरा का पूरा collapse कर जाएगा. Okay, what is paradoxical embolism? A venous embolus passes through an interarterial or interatrial or interventricular defect and gains access to a systemic arterial circulation. Mostly जो embolus हैं क्योंकि वो अपने point से travel करके they are going towards heart, so they are mostly present in the venous system, but they can also gain entry into the arterial system. How? From an interatrial or interventricular defect. Yeah, as we all know that anyone can have these interatrial or interventricular cardiac defects unknowingly. So these emboli can gain entry from the venous system into the arterial system from those defects. That will be known as paradoxical embolism. What are the major functional consequences of pulmonary embolism? Mostly emboli are clinically silent. With time, they become organized. They can also lead to sudden death, right heart failure, which is known as cor pulmonale, or cardiovascular collapse occurs when emboli obstruct 60% or more of the pulmonary circulation. Possibility of pulmonary hemorrhage is also there. And then there is also possibility that the patient can develop pulmonary hypertension and right ventricular failure. So this was about pulmonary thromboembolism. Next type of embolism is systemic thromboembolism. Systemic thromboembolism means that a thromboembolus which can go into any part of the any system or any part of the body. What are the different sources? It can be a mural thrombus. Mural means that it can be a cardiac thrombus. Then it can be an thrombus from an aortic aneurysm. Atherosclerotic plaques can also give rise to systemic thromboembolism, valvular vegetations, and venous thrombi or paradoxical thrombi. Venous emboli lodge in the lungs, and arterial emboli can travel to brain, lower extremities, intestines, kidneys, spleen, upper extremities, etc. What are the possible outcomes? Mostly tissue infarction is the outcome. जिस tissue में भी जाकर उसको उसकी vessel को occlude करेगा, that tissue will become infarcted. अगर heart है तो myocardial infarction हो जाएगी, brain है तो cerebral infarct बन जाएगा, lungs है तो pulmonary infarct बन जाएगा, mesentery है तो mesenteric infarction हो जाएगी, spleen है तो splenic infarction हो जाएगी, kidney है तो kidney infarct बन जाएगा. So the outcome is going to be infarction of the tissue, and it depends on vulnerability of the affected tissue to ischemia. जितना कोई जो सिस्टम है या affected tissue है वो sensitive है to hypoxia, उतनी जल्दी उसके अंदर infarction develop हो. The caliber of the occluded vessel, अगर उसने छोटी वेसल को occlude किया है तो वो जल्दी occlude कर लेगा, अगर बड़ी वेसल को occlude किया तो देर लगेगी उसमें. Presence of collateral blood supply. आपको पता है कि जो young people होते हैं, people who are in their 20s, they are more at risk of dying of a heart attack as compared to the older people. क्योंकि जो younger people हैं, they do not have enough collateral blood supply in the heart. जो older होते हैं उनके अंदर collateral blood supply बन चुकी होती है. तो same severity का जो हार्ट अटैक है या फिर ऑक्लूजन है और इन्फार्क्शन है, वो in younger people that can hit them more severely as compared to the older people. ठीक है जी, so this was about systemic thromboembolism. Next is fat and bone marrow embolism. Embolism involving fat and hematopoietic bone marrow. Mostly embolized lungs, जो फैट की और बोन मैरो की एम्बोलिज्म है वो मोस्टली किसको एम्बोलाइज करेगी? लंग्स को. It occurs after fracture of long bones, burns, and soft tissue trauma. Okay? Only 10% of patients are symptomatic. Otherwise, बाकी के patients जो हैं वो asymptomatic ही रहते हैं और उनकी death हो जाती है. Fat embolism syndrome. ठीक है, ये एक syndrome है which is a symptomatic fat embolism syndrome. It is characterized by pulmonary insufficiency, neurologic symptoms, anemia, and thrombocytopenia. It is fatal in about 5% to 15% of cases. Typically, 1 to 3 days after injury, there is a sudden onset of tachypnea, dyspnea, and tachycardia. Irritability and restlessness can progress to delirium or coma. Thrombocytopenia is the common feature which leads to petechial rash. Anemia is also there. Okay, इसका pathogenesis हम next lecture में करेंगे. Next lecture is also going to be our last lecture of this topic. आप लोगों को अगर कोई क्वेश्चन पूछने आज के लेक्चर के बारे में तो यू कैन आस्क, एंड अबाउट नेक्स्ट लेक्चर ऑल्सो इफ यू वांट मी टू रिपीट एनीथिंग, और अगर कोई कंफ्यूजन है तो आप लोग पहले से अपने क्वेश्चंस जो हैं वो प्रिपेयर रखिएगा, क्योंकि उसके एक दिन बाद आप लोगों का टेस्ट है इस टॉपिक का. तो जो भी आप लोगों के क्वेश्चंस होंगे आई विल बी एबल टू आंसर देम. Any questions from today's lecture? Okay, thank you, Shazmeen and Anika.